Do I have to remind you about what the truth is about your life, or is
No,
this a
sir.
game of cat and mouse?
No,
And are you going to interrupt me a third time?
I'm sorry.
Next time we will gag you.
Welcome to Rebel Chaser. My name is Gail, and I have a clip from Judge John Stevens' courtroom. He has a sex offender who is sentenced to 10 years in prison. And I didn't quite understand this, but he's motioning to receive jail or receive probation, and I guess in lieu of his jail. Anyway, Judge John Stevens gives him a really good verbal beating. That's the best part of it. But I also, before that clip, I want to show you a clip by Robert Gouveia. He gets transcripts from high-profile cases, and he reads through them line by line. Well, he got the transcripts for the Hunter Biden plea deal, and he does a really, really good job of reading through it. But you know that question, has anyone promised you anything not discussed on the record today? Yeah, well, that question is asked. And it just goes downhill for both the defense and the prosecution. After that, it just goes downhill. So I'm going to post just a little short clip of that, and then I will put the link in the description so you can go and watch the whole video.
Mr. Biden,
and let me
does
know
the
what you think.
written agreement as summarized by Mr. Weiss, the prosecutor, that he just read all of that stuff, then we just hashed all that out, does that accurately reflect the agreement you have reached with the government? Hunter says, yes, Your Honor. Has anyone threatened you or forced you into entering this written agreement? No, Your Honor. Has anyone made you any promises that are not contained in the written agreement? He's looking at the document that she just had him hold up and say, I signed it, I read it, I'm not on drugs, I'm here. Has anyone made you any promises that are not contained in this written agreement? Hunter's lawyer springs up. Your Honor, with the exception of the diversion agreement, which is a separate document that we're not on yet, judge says, we're not making an exception. I want to know, has anyone made you any promises, Hunter, that are not contained in the written memorandum of plea agreement in front of us now? Defense says, yes, there are promises from the government in the diversion agreement, document 2. Judge says, okay. And sir, Hunter, are you relying on the promises made in the diversion agreement in connection with your agreement to plead guilty here on this one now? You're relying on those promises. Hunter says, yes, Your Honor. And if the diversion agreement in part 2, if that were not valid, if that were not enforceable for any reason, would you enter, Hunter, the memo of the plea agreement in this case? No, Your Honor. Judge is looking at both these lawyers like, all right. So we're going to discuss that agreement in a bit. But for now, let me say, and by the way, I didn't get a copy of paragraph 15 of the agreement, but the parties provided me with a copy of that agreement prior to this hearing today. So that's what I'm going to quote from at the moment. And this is curious because our question is, did they just sneak this paragraph 15 in here at the last minute? In other words, she didn't get it the day before. She just got it prior to this hearing. And so she's looking at this now. So she says, okay.
I have two cases here, 22-40899 and 40900. You were Mark Wade Thibodeau, correct?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Dusler is your attorney. You were convicted in these two cases for the second-degree felonies of online solicitation of a minor in each case and sentenced to 10 years in prison, correct?
Well, that's correct.
That's, you were sentenced to 10 years in prison in each case, right? You were here when that happened, right? You were present.
Well, he's confused because of the motion we filed here.
Right now,
10 years.
just,
Yes, sir.
yeah, we can take one
Five
step.
on each case, yes, sir. I
Yeah.
remember now.
Don't anticipate anything. I haven't ruled on anything yet. You hadn't gotten probation at all yet.
Correct. Yes, sir.
And I mean, it's just not a given,
Yes,
but you were sentenced to 10 years in each case. The plea agreement is whatever sentence shall not exceed a cap of 15 years, correct?
correct.
So court sentenced you to 10 years in prison. Motion was filed. Go ahead, Mr. Dukes.
Well, Your Honor, we filed motion for imposition of community supervision, shock probation on his behalf. This was at the suggestion of the court, but the main thing on his situation is he had a very minimal criminal history. All he had was a possession of marijuana case in 2008 as a misdemeanor, nothing else. This event he feels terrible about. He always has. He didn't have any recollection of it because he was under the influence of Xanax and marijuana at the time. He has a reason why he was, but it's not a justification by any means. He just had a terrible situation in his family and he messed up, but he just had no knowledge of it, but he realized what a terrible mistake it was and accepts full responsibility and has. He's never been incarcerated before this in the penitentiary. I think that he has learned a very valuable lesson by being up there and would be an appropriate candidate for probation. And that's the reason for filing the motion.
I'm sorry, any criminal history?
Just that misdemeanor criminal history, misdemeanor possession of marijuana in 2008, some 15 years ago.
How old are you now?
34.
We're using Xanax daily at this time?
Well, I wouldn't say daily, but I was.
That's what the pre-sentence report that you.
It was,
that the
I would say,
probation
okay,
office-
I would
Let
say
me
daily, yes, sir.
complete my sentence before you rudely interrupt, okay?
Sorry.
Pre-sentence report that was admitted into evidence in the hearing for sentencing made by the probation office, which was a product of your answers, stated that you were using Xanax daily from March of 21 to June or July of 21.
Correct.
Is that true?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Where were you getting the Xanax
I was
from?
buying it off the street, sir.
From whom? How do you do that?
Well,
No, how do you do
somebody
that?
that knows somebody that I guess.
Who did you know?
Prescribed to it.
Who did you know?
It was a guy that I was working out of town with at
Who's
the
that?
time. It's one of the Mexicans.
Who's
from
that?
The Valley. I don't remember his name, sir. I met him on the
Your
job site.
memory has been completely
It was like
detached.
Jose or Juan or something like that. I was working out of town. I was dealing with the death. My mother was dying of cancer. I was just coping with it. I was working out of town.
Coping with it by using illegal drugs. Is that right?
Yes, sir. I understand that's not the right way to deal with your problems.
Do you just say that just because you've rehearsed this? Because
Absolutely.
you through? Are you saying that because you rehearsed it? Because you made a series of bad choices. Is Xanax really the only problem you ever had with drugs?
As far as using drugs,
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
I've used drugs in my younger days, like around 2008. It's, like
what?
when I was a little bit, I was using pot. I did meth a little bit, but I haven't done that since 2008. I was just hanging
You
out.
see anything wrong with that?
Definitely, yes, sir. And I understand that I was hanging out with the wrong crowd, and I've learned to change people, places, and things and get away from that kind of stuff.
So what was it? Was methamphetamine?
Yes, sir.
What else?
And weed,
Obviously Xanax.
not, yes, sir. I wouldn't use that.
I thought we just talked about Xanax for you used.
Yeah, in March and July.
That counts,
Okay.
doesn't it?
Yes,
In
sir.
your life?
Technically, yes, sir.
What else? Anything else?
That's good.
That's it.
Yes, sir.
You did tell the probation office you were using synthetic marijuana as well. For
Well-
3 years, and it was a lot. Do I have to remind you about what the truth is about your life, or is
No,
this a
sir.
game of cat and mouse?
Well,
And are you going to interrupt me a third time?
Sorry.
Next time we will gag you, and then we'll open the gag. We'll take the gag off so you can speak. I get this impression that you are the control freak, that you like to control your environment. You are the one who controls. The other people don't have a fair say. You do. You don't get to do that here. You have, I'm looking at 1, 2, between marijuana, synthetic marijuana, crystal meth, Xanax, mushrooms, all things that you admitted to the probation office that your now memory has faulted, are all things that show you have made a series of bad choices since you were 16 years of age, culminating with this mess. Online solicitation of a minor in each case. Which is the abuse of a child. It's about as low as it gets for a human to harm a child. But you spend a lot of your time harming yourself from the time, well, before you were an adult. You decided to make the wrong choices. So why is it I should shine favor on you with your rich history of wrongdoing and bad choices? Now you can speak.
Well, I've learned that as understand that I made a lot of bad choices, and it hasn't,
Are you a dumb person or a clever person?
I would say I'm pretty clever. Correct.
Well, I mean, you didn't know better.
Maybe I was just
Maybe you just chose evil versus good on a consistent base for 15 years. Since he was 16. How old were you when you were convicted here?
here
Yes.
for this charge right now.
Yeah.
I was,
That would have been January 30th.
Yeah, I was
How
still
old were you
34.
Sir,
So I'm still 34.
34.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so 18 years of
Yes.
17 years of a mess. It's half your life. Most of your adult life. You were making poor choices, correct?
For the
I mean, I can do the math.
Yes, sir. But like I told you, like around 2008, after I got off probation, I mean, I picked up 2 trades and I got to work and I stayed out of the way, raising a family.
Using synthetic marijuana from 24 to 27 years of age, a lot. That's about as foolish as you can make a choice.
Yes, sir.
Did you have a family then?
Yes, sir. I had
Yeah.
my first
Okay.
child at 24.
You chose that over your family.
Yes, sir. And I'm paying for it. Yes, sir.
Hmm?
I'm paying for it.
You're paying for it. How about them?
They're definitely paying for it.
Yeah. I'm sure they don't have a choice. Kids didn't have a choice of what family to grow up in,
Yes, sir.
but they sure got a bad choice. They got the bad end of the lot when you came along as a father, because you really haven't shown worthiness at all in a family unit. All you've done is set bad examples. Mr. Role Model.
Changed. I just want to show you that I can do it and stay on the right path.
Anything the state says, must say?
Well, Judge, I think the issues with the drugs and the memory, we just had a trial that was very similar to that, if the court remembers, and I didn't believe that the person had no memory of the sexual abuse then, and I don't believe that this individual has no memory of what he did. And I think the drug use and all those issues that are identified in that PSI really distract from the fact that he is admitted to sending photographs of his penis to a 13-year-old, requesting her to send photos of her breasts, her vagina, and her butt naked. And I just don't see how there's any explanation that drug use could somehow have created the opportunity for that. What's really at issue is that he created the opportunity because that was his desire. And that if left to his own devices, he probably would have been a greater offense. I think the evidence is clear from that in the PSI. And so the fact that he's here today, still sticking behind that lack of memory, I think that doesn't really rise to the standard of what this court expects whenever considering shock probation. That's my 2 pennies.
Okay. Anything else?
Everything that stands.
All right. What the pre-sentence report states is from the interested parties, because they have a voice with me, was I'd like to see him do some jail time. What he did was very unacceptable and very disturbing. If the judge does give him probation, I would like him to be ordered to write a letter of apology to our family for what he has done. But it says, I would rather him do time. So that's kind of where we are here. It seems like this is one of those situations where the family feels great harm and shame for what you pulled. And it does seem very disturbing that what the facts are very disturbing, but it's contrary to your criminal history, but it's not unexpected with your rich drug history, illegal drug history. So on what if the court places the defendant on probation, what are the different conditions of probation the court would exercise in this particular circumstance?
If you were placed on a sex offender caseload, if he is required to register, I'm not sure. There's a separate order of conditions that would also be signed additionally. But he would be placed on a sex offender caseload, and there are different conditions. That's in addition to the conditions that would already be in place.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grant the motion, place the defendant on probation for 10 years there will be terms and conditions of probation, which the court is going to assess, which are normal and customary for this type of offense. Also, he has a rich drug history. I want him to go into substance abuse felony punishment facility. And he's not going to be released until he completes the safety and the aftercare program that goes with that.
And Judge, we may need to look at the, make sure that we've got the sex offender registration the way it needs to be in this case.
My notes reflect that those were all done at the time.
Here's what the order is on that, because court's not going to do it for the defendant. You are required to at all times be fully, completely registered under law in this state and any other state you may move to that has similar reporting requirements.
You have to do that like re-register on a yearly basis.
Yes.
Once you register the first time, they will advise you what, how often you need to have that. Each offense requires different lengths of time. That you have
Well,
to-
he should have already gone through that, even though he's in
I think-
custody. I think once you register, somebody comes in and which would be, in his case, a law enforcement officer would have been doing it if he was in.
He says that they did it the first time we were 6 months ago. And that's what my notes was.
Where are you living?
Was living on Orange, but I'm gonna move back in with my grandmother. I've lost my house and everything since I've been incarcerated. Where was I
Let's
living?
say I don't know where your grandmother lives. Where is that? In Orange County.
Yes, ma'am. You get this.
Be so kind to date these today. Thank you. Is court coming?
Judge, sorry,
He's back here.
do you want to order the letter, like the big family asked?
No, they want a letter of apology. I want to, that needs to get drafted, prepared, sent to this court to review for appropriateness, because I don't trust you in any way to be appropriate. And then if it's approved, then it will, I'm going to ask the probation office to submit that to the victim and family. If you'd be so kind, thank you. And that needs to be done also as a condition of probation immediately. So your feet aren't touching the ground for a while. How long is safe, Pete?
It would be 6 or 9 months.
They decide that.
It's a minimum of 108 days usually, Judge.
Well, you're still in custody. Okay. For a while. Anything else?
No.
That is all. Thank you.
Well, I didn't expect him to give him probation. I guess he feels as though if it weren't for the drugs, he wouldn't have done it. I don't know. I'm kind of was more on the side of the prosecutor, but it's not my decision. And don't forget to go to Robert Gouveia. His show is called Watching the Watchers, and the link is in the description. Thank you.